Hey Gearheads, and welcome to GT Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I'm Cory, and this week we have a very fun discussion. I said that every week, and it's true every single week, with a fellow YouTuber, fellow journalist, fellow car reviewer in David Boyd, who runs All Terrain Nation. And he and I have been Facebook friends for a while. I've come on his channel. We've done some fun stuff together. I followed along with his channel and his growth. They recently bought a Bronco, which I know we will talk at length about in this episode, but reached out to him and said, hey, I've been on your channel. We kind of had a little bit of fun with you when we did, but I've never had you on mine. Would you join? And so very excited that had the availability on both our calendars, made it work, and without further ado, David Boyd. It is just good to be sitting down with you yet again. I have chatted with you a couple times on your channel. It's good to finally bring you over to my side of the thing.
I know I haven't seen you since the Tawa event last fall, so it's kind of like it's always good to see press friends again.
I know, right? And you've gone to shows I haven't. I've gone to shows you haven't. We've made each other jealous in our travel plans, so to speak. And a lot's happened. Y'all got a Bronco.
Yep.
Y'all still have your Jeep Gladiator. So really getting some interesting takes and some comparison. While they aren't like direct competitors, the Gladiator's a Wrangler with the bed. So like...
Yeah. I took on a video today. I had a comment where somebody's like, are you really putting up a Gladiator against the Bronco? And I was like, yeah, I only talked about the interior and the motor. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Like, what else is different? Nothing. So, but I do want to ask you, because we've got a buddy, a friend of the channel with a Bronco. We've got a couple videos out with his. I literally didn't know this until after the fact, but took him out to his first time off-roading in his 2-week-old to him Black Diamond Bronco to a very notorious off-roading park here in East Texas.
So that you did a couple months ago, right?
Right.
That video?
Yeah, that was around Christmas time, and that video dropped, and I realized while I was standing downhill of him, filming him come down the hill at me, that perhaps I might have given him a few more pointers, given that was his first time ever, and he was still getting to know his vehicle, and just, I by no means am an expert. I don't claim to be. I will say that my first time ever doing serious off-roading stuff, I had Sue Mead riding shotgun with me, so
oh, nice.
Who else better to have riding with you?
Yeah.
Learned from the team with Off Camber, based here in Texas. Learned even more, like I said, with legendary off-roader Sue Mead sitting in the passenger seat, to the point where one of the obstacles on the course, as soon as we got off of it, she looks over at me and she goes, he told you the wrong line. We're lucky we got out of that one. I was like, cool. Good that you're here. So
yeah, it's always fun to take people, of course, in your case, you didn't realize they didn't have maybe the experience that they needed a little bit. But no, I love taking new people out to go off-roading. I've taken a lot of Nissan guys out, and it's funny because we would cross a bridge. We have Windrock Park here, which is the biggest off-road park on the East Coast. It's 96,000 acres now. It's ridiculously big, but there's a bridge. There's an old wooden bridge you would cross to go into one of the trails, and I would cross the bridge. I would pull over and let my group kind of get up with me, and you would see people getting out of their vehicles and like, oh my God, I can't believe this off-road truck did that. And I was like, did what? But they were just so blown away by anything like that's not pavement. So yeah, it's always a good time.
Yeah. And so the first time going out there with him was his first time off-road. And then the next time I go out there with him, we did a side-by-side shoot with a press vehicle that Ford had dropped off with us for a week in a Outer Banks version of the Bronco, which we joked about it a lot in the comparison video, that it really is meant more for mall crawling. That one specifically is really meant for like sand and beach duty more than anything, but it still has the bones of a very competent off-roader.
Right.
The tires just weren't the best, and it didn't have the Sasquatch package.
Yeah.
But it held its own out there. And while we were out there, we also filmed. We've been doing family reviews lately. And so I let my wife get behind the wheel with our son in the back seat. And like at one point, I was like, "So you want to switch back? You want me to do?" She's like, "No, I'm driving this home." So she was hooked from that moment on.
It
And
sounds like when we picked ours up, Kelly, I wanted this Bronco as soon as I watched the drop video, and I never claimed to be Forrest Bronco, one of those guys that for the past 25 years have been begging Ford to do this. Right. But I seen that and I was like, oh, I gotta have that vehicle. And so finally we get to pick ours up. And Kelly, obviously you're married, Cory. There's an approval process.
Yes.
You can't do anything without approving it. But so she'd seen it. She's like, yeah, that's fine. Let's get that. And so I pick it up. I'm all excited and kind of had a nightmare at the dealership getting the thing. But halfway home, I was like, if I don't pull over right now and let her drive the rest of the way home, like I'll never hear the end of that.
So what build do y'all have?
So we have a 2021 Bronco Badlands with the Sasquatch package. Nice. So we have it's the mid package as far as the radio and stuff, but it's got all the goodies and those big 35-inch tires.
Hard top, soft top?
Soft top. Initially I went in, I was a day 3 reservation. Okay. And because I watched that on day 1, I watched Ford. I think that was the reveal of the year. And I think it's not been equaled since, honestly, that reveal, the way they did that. I watched that and I was scratching my head because I'm kind of a Nissan guy. Like I'm here in Middle Tennessee, so I'm kind of loyal to the company that like feeds my friends and family. Like they're big for my community. And I just for a couple of days I was contemplating, do I really I've owned new Fords, but I was like, do I really want to kind of get that as a vehicle? And it took 3 days, but finally I did it. And of course, you've covered some of this. What a nightmare it's been to actually get Ford to produce them and then to get your hands on it without huge markups.
So talk about a series of unfortunate events for Ford. You get a worldwide pandemic. You get that leading to a chip shortage. You get a third-party manufacturer of your hardtops not living up to their end of the bargain. Mm-hmm. And you get, I would say, based on that drop video, far and away just exceeded Ford's expectations on the demand of the vehicle. So just you put all those things in a bowl, you cook it up, and you get the firestorm that was the Bronco reveal. Add on top of that, because I'm in some local Jeep clubs on Facebook, the fact that the quote-unquote baby Bronco, the Bronco Sport, started hitting the streets, and those who weren't quote unquote in the know started saying, that Bronco, it's not what I thought it was. And we're like, no, that's not it. That's not it.
The Jeep guys love that.
Oh my gosh. They fed on that for so long. But I think sitting here in 2022, we are finally to a spot where I'm also in a spotters group here in East Texas where, we post pictures of rare cars that we see around town. And for a while, if you saw a Bronco, you posted it. And it got to a point where literally on one of my posts, somebody was like, I think these have really become irrelevant posts now.
Yeah.
And I had to agree. I see one now pretty much at least once a week here in town.
I have a few in my area actually, but the first one I actually saw on the road was last whenever the Tawa West event or the truck event was. I seen one in a little beat cave town, and it had it was starting to get chilly here in Middle Tennessee, but you guys in Texas have great weather, it seems like, and the top was off of it, and me and Kelly both kind of turned and looked. It was like, was that a Bronco? Like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess they're here.
Yeah. It was like the floodgates opened, and you had touched on the dealer markups on them. I've seen as high as 120,000 locally.
Yeah,
and it was a first edition, so it garnered just a little bit, but 120. I can't justify.
I can't justify the prices that Jeep and Ford are getting for this style vehicle anyways.
Right.
I mean, obviously I bought one, so I guess I can justify it, but it's ridiculous at what they're charging for it. Now, granted, there's a lot of development costs, especially
Right.
for Ford. The framing is too new to them because it's going to be with the next Ranger, but there was a lot of development costs with that vehicle. It doesn't share as many platforms as it probably should to make it cost
Profitable.
right for
Yeah.
them, but they're also in line with what Jeep's doing. And Jeep just every year just seems to add 2 to 3% to the price. And now I think a Gladiator, a Rubicon Gladiator, you could have bought for $55,000 Christmas time. Now the MSRP is up to 57, something like that. 50, yes, somewhere in there, and it's getting ridiculous. But people keep paying the price.
Yeah. So the JL Wranglers came out for 18, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Mm-hmm.
is when I started building and pricing every single day. I was like, well, what if I did this? What if I did that? What if? And somehow I always got to 63K, always.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I can't. Like, so I started talking, because when you're on build and price, there's no restrictions. It's fake
yeah,
money. You're playing with
yeah,
house
yeah, yeah.
money. Like, why aren't you going to check all the boxes? And I like what you do. You go on there and you play around with them and you see what knocks off what. And
Well, yeah, I started doing building prices on my YouTube channel
yeah.
because I was building and pricing my Bronco. Like
Mhm.
everybody, Jeep or Ford launched that, and by I think it was October they had their build and price up, and it was, oh my god, it was glitchy as can be.
Mhm.
But it was the first time, other than just putting $100 for the reservation down, that we got to actually see what things were going to cost.
Right.
Because you just blindly put $100 down, you chose a particular model, but you didn't even know really what you were choosing. And obviously that didn't matter because you were able to, once you actually spec it with a dealership, you do what you want. But yeah, so I was doing a couple of those videos, and I watched, people seem to watch out of anything I was doing, they were watching that particular video. And I ended up, I think I did 3 building prices on my particular Bronco because I did switch it up. We
Mhm.
did initially I'd ordered a black diamond, a 4-door black diamond, spec'd how mine is, but it doesn't, the black diamond's a lesser trim than a Badlands.
Right.
You don't get the sway disconnect and all that.
Mhm.
And I did that for a reason because I didn't want to upset the wife. You
Yeah.
know, like I said, you gotta get approval for everything.
Right.
And I thought, it's already, we at that time, I think it was like 51,000 is what it was going to cost retail. And I was like, man, that's getting up there. We at the time didn't have any car payments. So the idea of like
Mhm.
having a car payment
Mhm.
again was like, oh man. And so we did the Broncos Super Celebration East last April. And that's the first time I got to ride in a Bronco. They had the drivers out, kind of like
Yeah.
what they did at Johnson Valley. They were taking people out on a ride, and they took and they crawled it up on a rock and said, watch this. And they hit the sway disconnect. And I'd watched that release video probably 60 times. So I knew exactly what he was doing. But my wife, she's probably a better driver than I am off road. She said, what was that when it did the sway
Right.
disconnect? And she goes, ours have that? And I was like, no, I was trying to cheap out on it. And she's like, well, we have to have that. And as a guy, I was just like, yes,
Yes.
I got it. I got what I wanted somehow.
Yeah, so that was the downside of both of the ones that we took out to Barnwell is Black Diamond and Outer Banks. Neither one of those have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's only the Badlands
Hmm.
and now the
And
Raptor.
Raptor now. Yeah.
And uh, it even the Wild Track, which that one doesn't make sense because technically it's like the top spec one until you can get your hands on a Raptor, doesn't have that, which I drove at the Bronco off rodeo thinking, okay, it's top trim, it's got everything. And then
Yeah.
to find out it didn't was upsetting. But to
Sure.
show you just how hungry people were for Bronco content, last summer of 21 was a special summer show of the Chicago Auto Show.
Hmm.
And they brought out, the Bronco Built Wild test track and all that. I did a ride along. Didn't even get to drive it. It was my first experience behind the wheel of one, and I filmed it. That video got picked up in a forum and blew up for me at the time. And like literally just showing footage of it doing stuff in a controlled environment, people were like eating it up. And so again, like they hit a home run with that vehicle.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. Too much of a home run.
to the point that even through the chip shortage, I'm sure they lost people, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And then the hardtop issue, it's did y'all originally have a hardtop and switch to a soft top
I
to expedite?
well, not to expedite. So I put in January of 20, let's see, January 20th of 21, I put my order in and I did a hard top with it. And I was like, well, well, I did the so I did the black diamond trim. That's what I actually ordered. And by 1st of May, an inside source I have within Ford was like, Dave, we're having issues with the tops.
Yeah.
And he goes, for one, we can't get them made fast enough. At the time, I think they were only building like 40 a day or something. It was pretty ridiculous. But I understand there's tooling. They're understanding. They're trying to perfect what they're doing. I get it. So I paused my order. I called my dealership and said, hey, let's just wait till 22. We'll get the kinks out. I knew I probably wasn't going to get mine till November anyways. So I was like, by then, let's worry about 22s. Because, in this business, even though it's a number, you always need the latest and greatest, So now it's 22. And so I didn't think anything of it. And we went to the Woodward Dream Cruise in Michigan, and we were trying to attend the Ford was doing some color drops for 22.
Eruption
and
green.
Yeah, eruption green, which everybody loves, and hot chili pepper red. And they were doing away with the one color that me and my wife could agree on, which was rapid red. And I love the cactus gray. If all day long, I would pick that color as my top choice, but I get it. It's kind of plain. So we agreed on this color, and we thought, okay, well, we'll just, on the way home, we were driving the Gladiator back from Michigan, and we we were both thinking it without saying it, and we finally just, how the road is, you're bored,
Right.
And I said, what if we put our order back in to get the rapid red? Because by that time we started talking, I was like, I don't know what I don't like the green. I've had that green in a Firebird that I had, and it's a great color. I've done that color. It's not for me. And so and then Kelly was like, you know what? If we go back in, let's get the Badlands I want. And once again, my heart was racing, like, yes, finally.
Yeah. Don't let that opportunity pass by.
Right. So I get back that Monday morning. I called my dealership, and I've had a great working relationship with my salesperson. And I said, hey, just let's put us back in. I said, but let's go soft top, because I'd been waiting for a hard top. And I was like, if I can't get the color I want, I might as well try for a soft top. And 3 days later, I got my VIN and a build date. And we were pretty pumped. The only problem we did have was they pushed us back a month after we got our build date. So I think initially it was September 27th, and it was built actually on October 28th.
Okay.
And what's cool is I had some inside sources at that plant, and they sent me pictures of my vehicle being built down the line, not the finished product that everybody is getting, because I know the guy who developed that program as well. And he was like, dude, we're about to blow people's mind when they were going to drop that. He said, we've been taking pictures of these things from day one, just waiting to drop these on people. So he said, we'll see what we can do about getting you some pictures. And he sent me on the 28th, October 28th, no, 29th, he sent me these pictures, and I was like, he goes, are you ready to have your mind blown? And I was like, yes. Because he knew, like, he kept bugging me about it. He's a Ford guy. He's you're going to love this product. And he sent me these pictures, and he sent me a video of the body going to frame. And I was like, oh my God. And so I knew it was built. But then the struggle for Bronco guy is it's built, but when will it ship?
Right.
And Ford has a nice build and track on their website, but it's not always like, it's not like ordering a pizza where you can literally follow it down the road. So I'm like, I told Kelly, I was like, it's going to get delayed. I know it. And we didn't hear anything. There's a shipping. These guys on Bronco 6G, excellent forum. They have it down. They know more probably about the process than Ford actually knows about it, how to get information about it. And they give a tracking for the actual trucking company. There's a tracking they found.
Wow.
And I'm trying to track it. My salesperson, he's like, man, we're trying to track it for you, because they know we do YouTube and the press stuff. And I got 3 delivery dates, and finally it came on one when we weren't expecting it. My guy was out of town, and he said, hey, is this your vehicle? Like, my salesman sent me this. He's like, I think your vehicle's in. I was like, I literally dropped what I was doing and ran to the dealership. I was like, I got to see this thing. And sure
Yeah.
enough, it was there. But Cory, the biggest hurdle was actually purchasing the thing, because but when I put my money down, I told the person, I was like, look, I will pay MSRP all day long.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to I'm not trying to discount it. I know it's a hot vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
and they were fine with that. Even when I ordered it, I was like, this is all I'm paying. So I had a lot of emails about it, and sure enough, a friend of mine that works at a dealership says, "Hey, Dave, they're starting to add $2,500 on top of that." And I told Kelly, I was like, "Here's the deal. We have the emails." I said, well, "I'm going to raise a stink about it, but be prepared that if we really do want it, it's going to cost us a little bit more."
Right.
Which 2,500. I hate to pay any more than what it retails, but I thought that's not too bad. And then I get a phone call. Sorry to drag this thing on, but there was a story to buying this thing. I get a phone call from the person going, "Hey, did the deal not work out for you?" Because they have it on their website for sale, and they have it on Facebook groups and everything in the showroom, offering it to people. So I had a friend call, and sure enough, oh yeah, for $80,000. My truck ended up listing
No.
at 54,000. They were offering it to people. My vehicle, who I saw the day before, was
Yeah.
offering it to people for $80,000, and I guarantee you they would have sold it out from under me.
Yeah. Ah.
But we ended up getting it for retail.
Good.
I saved the emails, and I was obviously being in the business, you just kind of know, like
Right.
with C8, you knew when C8 Corvette dropped, they were gonna,
Mm-hmm.
if you weren't protected, they were gonna knock you. And so I was kind of prepared.
So this whole idea of dealer markup, especially over this past year, has become a thing on all vehicles, not just C8,
Mm-hmm.
not just Bronco, to the point that the number one theme to comments on anything I review is, yeah, but that dealer markup,
Right.
which is fair. I, I get it. The market is frustrated. Uh, Being a business student myself, I'm like, yeah, but dealers aren't turning vehicles like they used to. They still have expenses.
Mm-hmm.
They're having to refigure their side of things, and it is still a competitive market. Someone can still, in theory, have a similar vehicle across town and undersell you, and they've lost
Right.
out on a sale. So, like, I always reply, yeah, but not all dealers do that. But even dealer friends that I have here locally will explain to me their markup process and why they do it and how they do it. And I get it. There are two sides to every coin. Everybody's got a family to feed and mouth to feed.
Yep.
I get it. But to your point, a $54,000 Bronco selling for 80, that's
Yeah.
egregious. That's uncalled. That is why Ford now, it has gone on the record to say they will cut allocations to dealerships that are
Ford
living in
says
this.
that. They say that, and all these manufacturers are saying that. But man, I think, for one, dealers are dying.
Right.
And I mean, that structure, Tesla's proven you do not need dealers to survive anymore. And trust me, it came out today that Ford's splitting off their EV business from the main brand, and there's a reason for that. I guarantee you that they're skirting some sort of laws. The UAW is really upset about this, because EVs aren't, there's not many parts to put on an
Right.
EV. There's no engine to put together. So the UAW is kind of fighting them. Dealers seem to be shooting themselves in the foot. And like to your point earlier, I excused this in 21 because I have friends in the business, and like you, I talked to them, and I understand that, my local Chevrolet dealership, I did a video in this maybe summer last year, and there was nothing on their lot,
Mm-hmm.
like just nothing. And so I do understand they have mouths to feed, and there's a
Right.
lot of mouths to a dealership to feed. And generally where they make their big money is in the service department.
Right.
So with like Bronco, invoice on a Bronco, they're still making $2,000. But to anybody that, even though I say I paid MSRP, nobody is paying MSRP, because dealerships now have the little quirky nitrogen filled air, or all these little things that
Just
you can
paint
fight them with.
protection or
Yeah. Oh, mine had something called
Gap protection.
permacoat they wanted to put on it, and I was like, always going to protect your dash. I was like, look, man, I'm doing a long-term review on this vehicle. I want problems. I don't want
Yeah.
the dash to be, if it scratches easy, I need to know these things. But
Mhm.
no, I feel sorry for the dealerships, but at the same point, they're getting slightly greedy, and I think they're ultimately going to pay the price for it.
Well, Ford, I haven't kept up with this story thread as much as I should, but Ford has teased that they are going to lean in more to this Tesla style build to order,
Mhm.
which I would say the last year and a half, 2 years has kind of proven that people are more or less okay paying a little bit more, losing that haggle. And Tesla has proven that, you know, the price you see, you build it online, that's what you pay.
Yep.
And I don't like it. I I'm one of the weird ones that thoroughly enjoys car shopping.
Right.
When it's with one exception. When I turned 25, I went out and I bought my dream car, which was a Camaro SS. It was a 45th anniversary, six
Oh,
speed,
nice. Yeah, yeah.
and like they had me hook, line, and sinker. And all of my non-negotiable rules of Corey's tips to car buying
Right.
out the window.
Yeah.
Totally, no, didn't matter. And so yeah, I paid too much. I was suckered in probably every way you could be suckered in. But I didn't care because I drove it home. like,
Right.
and I had just got a promotion at work, just turned 25. Like it was a perfect storm of I'm buying this and
Mhm.
the cost be darned. But, yeah. So for me, I'm torn because I love haggling. I love negotiating. I love just, it's part of the reason why I started the channel. I like going and just seeing what salesmen know. Like
Right.
that's a fun Saturday for me is to go pretend to buy a car and just
Or they
see.
don't know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that side of me mourns the potential loss of the old way of things. But doing what I do in reviewing vehicles, not having dealerships is actually more beneficial because it makes me more valuable because
Mhm.
my opinion is more worth it. I've actually gotten to drive it and I've gotten to drive its competition and I can tell you what I think. I could point out the things that I don't like and the creaks, rattles, and to borrow a phrase, quirks and features.
Right.
And so like
I
that
think you owe
side
Doug like 10 cents right there.
yeah. So like I'm torn, but ultimately, it goes the way it goes, and we'll see how it shakes out. But
Well, to your point there of me and Kelly have a if I want the vehicle, generally she negotiates it. So she tries to take out the emotional factor for me. And same when she goes to buy a vehicle, usually I try to negotiate it because it like buying a car is so emotional and the
mhm,
dealerships have this down. They
mhm,
know, especially a 25-year-old kid, which I did the exact same. I went out and bought a brand new Firebird, that green one I was telling
yeah,
you about in 1994 or 5, somewhere in there. And luckily, the guy I worked for in the music business at the time, he helped me out. He was a parent for me in that situation because he started calling every dealership. So I did have a little, or I would have went blindly in there and just said, "Where do I assign? What do
yeah,
I?" Because a young buyer, these are life lessons they don't teach in school
nope,
of how to handle these, because a car is a major purchase.
yeah,
You know, my Bronco at $54,000, my first house was $70,000.
yeah,
Like they're getting to be, and now they're going up to 92 months on financing. And you
it's
could, as a kid,
ridiculous.
you could just sign something, never know what interest rate or anything. And
Mhm.
yeah, you better be a smart buyer. And channels like ours, I think, hopefully help people negotiate or navigate those murky waters.
Yeah, I've long said to any of my listeners, especially in the local East Texas area, if you want me to go car shop with you, I will gladly. Because, like I said, I get a thrill, a rush out of it. I've gone with several friends car shopping, and I love getting to play bad cop because I'm always
Mhm.
bad cop, and I'm like, nope, we're walking, and just to see the panic and the just yeah, it's fun for me in a weird, sick, demented way. And I've got
Yeah.
a friend who sells Fords now. So, Colton, if you're listening, nothing against you, buddy. But yeah, I know he's one of the good ones because he and I chat all the time. He'll send me
Right.
pictures. First time he ever got to drive a Mach-E or a Bronco, he was sending me pictures and videos and stuff.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome, man.
yeah.
But like right now, like to your point of like buying cars is like hard right now because they don't have anything.
Mhm.
But there, if the market ever settles down and you want a vehicle, there's value in walking away.
Right.
And I
Always.
learned this lesson in 2007. The Nissan Frontier had been out, the new one, or yeah, 7 or 6. The new one it came out. I found one on a used lot. It had like 10,000 miles or something. I wanted this little 4-door truck so bad, and they threw a bad interest rate at me.
Mhm.
And at the time, my credit wasn't where it is today, and it was still pretty bad interest rate. And Kelly's like, "Hey, let's just walk." And it killed me to do it. And 2 days later, guess who called me? They wanted to make a deal.
Yep.
And I learned that day of like, look, man, salesmen are hungry. If that phone's not ringing for them, they're going to go, who have I been talking to? Let's start contacting these people. And sure enough, I went home that night with that truck where I wanted to pay it too.
Right. Yeah. To your point, it is so emotional, and we get so wrapped up into it, especially for me because uh, if it weren't for the Chevy Camaro in general, I would not love cars. Like
Yeah.
it's been my gateway drug, and it lured me in, and the fact that the 2012 model I got was very heavily retro inspired by
Mm-hmm.
the first gen, which is my favorite gen, just added fuel to the fire. Then it was an anniversary. Then it was an actual manual sitting on a dealer lot. Like when I saw that, I was like, it's a unicorn. I have to, it's a sign.
Yeah.
Everything points to I have to buy this.
What engine came in that?
It was a 6.2
Oh, wow.
V8 with 426 horsepower. It even got more horsepower than the automatic did
Wow.
by like 6. And
Hey,
but
those 6 horsepower matter.
they do. They do. And I even called a really good friend, work friend that I sat next to for 11 years of my life. I said, dude, talk me out of it. Talk me out of it as I'm sitting in it, driving it. I'm like, please talk. And he's like, do you have the money? I was like, I do. He's like, do you want it? I was like, I do. Ultimately, he did a terrible job because I ended up with it.
That's a good friend.
But yeah, I had it for a year and realized that my car payment was higher than my rent at the time, which
Mhm.
does not make sense. And after the first go round of putting tires on, well, back tires on it,
Yep.
I realized that perhaps I was overextending myself and made a smart-ish, because I should have gotten something used to be ultimately smart, but I got a Chevy Cruze Eco
Oh, wow.
four-door.
What a
Oh yeah, this totally went the other direction, and to the point where I was at a dealership earlier this week picking up a one-day loaner for a couple of videos that we put, and me and the general manager are friends, and we're out there standing next to. I had parked right next to the car I was there to pick up. He
Mhm.
goes, "Is this yours?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, what is a car guy driving the most vanilla car in the entire world? I was like, but it's a 6-speed manual. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I surprise every car guy that looks at my car. I'm like, they went down to Houston to find this one for me because it had to be a manual. If I was
Mhm.
stepping away from my beloved Camaro, I was at least going to have some redeeming quality of some sort. It is a terrible manual transmission. I have driven the best that is currently out on the market. I did a 2019 Honda Civic Type R,
Mhm.
and whew, those Honda fanboys, they're onto something. I could drink the Kool-Aid a little bit after driving that car. I was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, you and Jill Seminolo, man, the last of the people that want to drive manuals. I like a manual. Not in a off-road vehicle. I don't like a manual, and
Yeah.
obviously sports car with the new Z coming out. That's awesome. Poor Nissan gets kind of crapped on a lot because, well, it's Nissan, they're always like behind everybody, but they were smart with the Z. They really couldn't afford to do a full redesign.
Mm-hmm.
So they kept what they had and just plussed it out with a new body. And, now Toyota fanboys are so upset that with the Supra, we don't get a manual transmission.
Yep.
And guess what? Nissan's actually building the product they sell, where Toyota, it's just a rebadged, BMW, which no shame in that, and that happens more than you would think
Right.
with vehicles. But with that vehicle, that their Halo car, like you would have thought they could have done a little better.
Yeah, and I've talked about this both on video reviews and such. So Toyota has two sports cars, two really good sports cars, and they make neither of them. One is made by Subaru, and one is made by BMW. Which I, from a car guy's perspective, I can see the BMW side of it. Subaru is really more known for rally cars than they are like true sports cars. But after getting behind the wheel of a 22 Toyota GR86, which is a rebadged Toyota or Subaru BRZ,
right?
That is a good car.
Oh yeah,
no. My goodness, very tempting.
Good horsepower to weight ratio in that thing.
They brought the usable power down in the rev line, so much lower RPM to access the power. The version I drove also had a 6-speed manual, which is one of the last cars where the manual is actually faster. And I actually had people arguing this with me in the comments of the video. I was like, no, go look. It is literally better as a manual in every way, shape, or form if you know how to drive it.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just very interesting to me that Toyota, such a famed brand that has their stuff together and knows how to make cars and knows how to make them well and is the world's largest car maker, right up there with them if they're not. I know they took the crown from GM. I know the VW group is rivaling it.
Yeah, they're all battling right there.
Yeah, but anyway, of that scale, you would think that they would be able to put a little money aside and do something of their own instead of...
Well, that's probably why the Japanese companies are generally very, very conservative. They don't make moves. They just don't make moves, and which is part of Nissan's problem and kind of Toyota's problems, with the new Tundra out. No front tow hooks and all these little weird things. But honestly, I know tow hook nations out there, nobody uses those things at all. Nobody.
But we like to brag if they're red or blue or gold or whatever the color of the day is.
But those guys, the new Tundra, which we both got to drive the launch of that, and great vehicle. But it could be better. Like Toyota has the skill to really, but they're fighting. Toyota America fights Toyota Japan, and it's the same way with Nissan with the Titan. The American designers want something slightly different. In Japan is like, no, it's too loud. And you're like, you do not get the American buyer. Right. There can never be too loud. Like, what sells more Mustangs? When you fire up that V8 and you hear that rumble, like for 25 years, Ford has known how to make that Mustang from the factory sound ready to go. And I think it's been one of the weaknesses of the Camaro, the last gen, or I never know what gen it is anymore.
We're in the 6th.
The 2002 gen, where they kind of shut it down for a little bit.
Yeah,
from the factory, you would get an LT1 engine in that thing. It just didn't sound like you had an LT1. It just kind of was like, it's fast, but the Mustang of the same period sounded right, right.
Yeah, as a Camaro fanboy, I hold to the fact that Ford has always sounded better. And I will also like to point out that 90% of the time, Camaro has had better performance.
Oh, sure.
Just not the sales. So, yeah, I love rivalries so much. And
we have a good one now with Wrangler and Jeep.
Oh,
with Wrangler and Bronco.
And just today, so I alluded to having a Bronco for a week. We did 2 videos on that, and I sandwiched conveniently in between those 2 videos. I found it was used, but I found a Wrangler. See, I'm doing it. I found a Wrangler locally that it was a Rubicon. It didn't
Hmm.
compare to the Outer Banks that I had, but
Right.
still, I wanted to drive it. It was red. I drove it. I reviewed it.
Right.
And I loved the Bronco. Don't get me
Hmm.
wrong. And my wife was like, "When are we getting one?" Almost 100%
Nice.
serious,
Nice.
but to the point that she was sold on it after having it. And I kid you not, from just driving the Jeep across the parking lot, I was like, it just speaks to me more.
Really?
There's just, it's small, intangible things that 100% come from actually getting in both of them.
Hmm.
And
Oh, you have to experience both vehicles.
yeah,
There's a in the forum world right now. There's a if you get on Jeep forum, they're always like, "Oh, that Bronco's garbage." Like kind of what you're alluding to. Most of them think the sport is the
right.
Bronco, but I mean, I think hands down, if you were to daily them, I think Ford has them whipped, in
Yes,
my opinion,
I would
because of
agree.
the independent front suspension.
I would
Like I
agree.
did 1,000 miles a couple weeks ago to Florida and back in mine. Never was really fatigued from driving. I did 1,000 miles in my Gladiator to Michigan. It would wear you out because it's that solid axle. It's going to
Mhm,
wander a little bit on the road,
mhm,
and you have to actively participate in driving. Where the Bronco, you don't. But the Jeep has so many years behind that style vehicle that I say this on my show, and I was telling somebody the other day about this. Ford looked at what made Jeep successful, removable roof, couple
mhm,
things, and they found the essence of what it made it, but they didn't find the soul of what made a Jeep a Jeep.
right.
There's little plastics that Ford is just cheapened out on, I think,
Mhm,
that are easily scratchable,
mhm.
where
The
even like
doors.
the door itself, like the door plastic,
Mm,
like I can scratch that fairly easy on my Bronco, but the Jeep, it's just for some reason it's more rugged. Little things about the center stack. I think the layout of the Ford is better with the air conditioning buttons and
mhm,
all that. But for Jeep just did nice little trims around it. It just
mhm.
looks more refined and more finished.
Yeah, I really wish I had more time with the Wrangler, that I could have done a at least a wife review. Our son was at his grandparents, and red is his favorite, so he was very upset when he saw that I drove a red Jeep without him. But I would have at least liked to get her behind the wheel and get her thoughts and opinions, because it's been a really fun little thing I've been experimenting with on my channel lately. And she likes to have fun with it too, because she is like dead silent on her thoughts and opinions until the cameras are rolling. And so I don't have a batting average as of yet as to predictions of what she likes, dislikes about them. I've gotten them
Mhm.
all wrong, and it's been a fun little back and forth that she and I have had.
Well, I've watched your videos where she flew to Chicago with you,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
was that her first time kind of getting to go do an event with you?
Yes,
Did she have fun?
she did.
Good, good.
So what she does for work, she travels for work as well. She promotes our city, and
Mhm.
she's the head of marketing for Tyler, Texas. Small plug. Visit Tyler.com. Great place to come visit. Great. We're about to embark on our second busiest season of the year. Spring is huge for flowers here. So
Nice.
shout out. But so she travels for work. I've gone with her on a couple of trips just as like a free vacation for me. Like we went
Sure,
to New
sure.
York City. I still remember that trip. There was one day where she had to like work fully, and like I explored the city on foot, and it was fun. Um, so like we've done that before, but it was fun to get to bring her along for me, and she worked the camera for me and
Mhm.
helped
Which
out a
helps a
lot.
ton.
Oh
That's
yes, and then being able to bring her on camera, that brings so much joy to my life. She's
Mhm.
probably going to end up editing this episode as well. So Holly, I love you. Thank you so much.
Holly, hi.
You have been such a blessing on so many levels. Like I can't even begin to describe or explain. But uh, it was so much fun to get to go to that show with her because the behind the scenes of it. Um, I've been trying to get her to go to. It's now been rebranded the North Texas Auto Show, but the DFW area
Mhm.
puts on an auto show, and I've been trying to get her to go to that since I've known her. Like it's a thing I do even before I had a channel. It's
Sure.
just fun to go look at cars, and it's just not been a thing for her. And she genuinely had fun. We did the Bronco ride along, and I put her in the front seat. Funny thing though,
Smart, smart.
yeah. Funny thing, I rode with the exact same person driver that I did last summer,
No way.
and I didn't even know. Like I remembered her name, but for some reason, all I remember was that she had curly hair.
Mhm.
And I think it's mostly because people commented on it. And so I was fielding comments for a while about Bailey. And so I get in the vehicle after Holly and Bailey had been talking for a little while. And she's like, "Were you here last time?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Did you do this?" I was like, "Yeah, I rode with Bailey." And she goes, "That's me. I'm Bailey." And she had straightened her hair because it wasn't summer, whatever.
Right.
And so it was just kind of funny to get back behind the wheel with the same person. And so we did all the same stuff. And then the next day, we did Camp Jeep, which, Jeep has to tout that they're the biggest and the best. So they have a bigger hill at a steeper incline.
Was it in the
Both
show?
were indoors. So
Okay.
it was just a really fun experience to get to take Holly along. Of course, we got in the 392 Wrangler. So the loudest one that they had there.
I watched in 20, I did the Chicago Auto Show, and I watched one of those guys nearly come off their track. It was hilarious. He was in
Mm,
a Gladiator, and one wheel was off, and like he
mm,
really had to stop. And he was coming down a little whoop-de-whoop deal, and
mm.
I don't think he was paying attention. I was like, how embarrassing,
You had
man.
one job.
Yeah, yeah, we hired you specifically to drive, and you potentially mess that up.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, last thing I want to touch on because you and I haven't really gotten to talk about it, and I know news cycle it's old news by now, but SEMA. You got to
Hmm.
go to SEMA. I
Hmm.
didn't. I'm incredibly jealous. It's on my radar to go, but what stood out to you from that event? Because I know it was smaller than years past, but it's still probably bigger than some of maybe the shows I've been to.
Well, it was smaller, but it was still spread out.
Right.
So they had one hall that you could tell that not Boyd Cotting. What's the guy that worked for Boyd Coddington, designer, Chip Foose.
Yeah.
He had one of the big halls, and I think GM was supposed to be a part of this, and I think they backed out of what they were going to do. So he spread his cars way apart, and it's this big hall. I mean, it was obvious what they were doing, but other than that, they didn't have the brodozers like you normally see, or these big deep dish wheeled full size
Oh.
trucks. But no, SEMA's awesome.
I'm gonna have to pause you right there. Are
Nope.
they on the road everywhere there like they are here? Because Tennessee and Texas
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
follow similar. Oh, they're the worst. Okay, sorry, had to
Yes.
get that out.
And luckily I have Whistling Diesel is literally like 15 minutes from my house here. So he just destroys all those things. I love it, man, that he
Oh.
just wears those things out. But no, SEMA is awesome. It's definitely I did one day. I approach when I go out on a business trip like that, I'm in and out. Corey, these are expensive.
Yeah.
People think, oh, it's fun to go cover these things. Well, guess what? Manufacturers aren't sending me out there. I've had a couple times where Nissan would send me to something they wanted me to cover, but other than that, it's all on my bill, which I prefer. I don't want to feel obligated to give a good review or something
Right.
because of they bought my trip, but I it was pretty nice. I mean, Vegas, I'm not a Vegas guy. So
Right.
we flew in, we got in, I guess it's about 10 o'clock Vegas time, literally found the hotel, went to bed. You have to be up early.
Right.
Like I was 8 a.m. their time, which for us, we're both central time zone people.
Right.
So it wasn't too bad, but yeah, no, it's overwhelming because you don't know where to, they have sort of signs, but it wasn't as organized as I would have thought it would have been for the show this size. And finally, there was this nice lady that we were talking to some not security people, but people that were guiding people around, and they had no clue. And finally, this nice lady came over and she said, "I'm personally taking you guys to where you need to be for the press sign in."
Nice.
And man, she walked probably a mile to get us like to right where we needed to be. And I ended up seeing Andre with TFL there, and we talked for a minute. But then it's just like you're overwhelmed because for me, I knew Bronco, it was going to be the year of the Bronco
Right.
because it was just such a big launch for Ford.
They had a Chia
Um,
covered one. Like, yeah.
yeah, I think somebody counted, said there was 97 Broncos there, something like that. Probably more than in any town in the US, I
Right.
would imagine. But no, it's great. Um, I suggest day one. It's one of those deals, as you know, if you're not first, you're last kind of thing.
Right.
So I was able to get some good Bronco content out that some other channels were kind of floating with us and trying to learn how to do this kind of stuff. And I literally was recording everything on my iPhone,
Yeah.
and I can edit real quick in iMovie. And in 20 minutes, I had a video out, and
Right.
they're worried about, they've got their most expensive DSLR camera with them, and they're thinking, oh, tonight we'll edit that, which never happens.
Right.
You're always worn out, and you never go right to editing. And they were blown away that I was like, no, man. I said, this is a business trip for me. I'm in and out. And we covered the show. We we went to dinner with some friends that night, and 8 a.m. we flew back out. But it was, dude, it's amazing. Go this year. I'll be there this year again.
Okay.
It's definitely, it's for press. It's pretty easy to get into. I do see the only bummer about it is you do see some people that you're like, how did you get in here?
Yeah.
And you've seen, I seen it at Chicago Auto Show. You see a lot of mommy bloggers, and nothing against mommy bloggers. There's a reason that
Right.
people like them, but sometimes it seems like some of the more serious events. I don't need I'm trying to cover a vehicle, and a lady's trying to get a selfie for Instagram or something. Like, they will get right in your way. But there was a few people like that. You're just like, why are you even here? Because it's really, SEMA is a it's a
Right.
buyer's showcase. It's not for really anything else. And but no, you'll see all your friends there. You'll see people, and I know a guy from a Z1 Motorsports who does a lot with the Z community. He just, in this huge 4 football field area, I happened to bump into a guy that I deal with all the time. He's like, "Dave, is that you?" And it's like, "Yeah, what?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll talk later, man. I
Small
got
world.
stuff to do. You got stuff to do." But Corey, do it, man. It just as a car nut, you're gonna have a blast.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I'll start booking travel tomorrow.
And do minimum 2 days. Next year, this coming up year, I'm doing at least 2 days, because you do, as people who cover this, we do have, hey, I need to get, there's certain
Right.
A, B, and C I need to get. And watching you and Matt in Texas was pretty awesome, because I was pretty overwhelmed at the Tawa event, because you were saying Jeep 392 earlier.
Right.
There's a couple of them sitting there to drive, and there's the new TRX sitting there to drive, and you're like, you have to put the fanboy part aside and be like, okay, I've got to get to business. And seeing you and Matt just like get to work, like, no, this is business.
Yeah.
But to do that in a mega, the most awesome tuner cars, the Lamborghinis everywhere, it's so overwhelming, but I had a blast.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to book the travel plans. Vegas,
hope I didn't sell you too hard.
It didn't take much convincing. I was already leaning that way, and anytime you get to go to something that shows cool, fun, awesome, weird stuff, I'm in. So
yeah, I'm surprised though more people in our community don't cover it though. There's the big ones like TFL, and some of those guys will be there, but like there's channels that I would thought you would see. Just no.
All right, Dave. Well, to give you the rest of your night back, I've got a couple more questions for you for Behind the Paywall. So for those of you unaware, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/GT Garage Talk. We'll put the link down in the description below. But just a couple behind the paywall that I will ask you. But where can people find you and what you do?
So if you go over to allterrainnation.com, there's links everywhere. It'll link you to our YouTube channel, which is primarily our home is YouTube. I used to do podcasting, but I've just backed. I need Cory. You need to inspire me to get back to podcasting, man. I love just sitting here talking to people, but YouTube's the big thing for us. We do reviews. I'm an enthusiast, obviously the Bronco, like we were talking earlier. So I do have one that I've done my kind of normal car reviews on. Now it's time to have fun with it and put all kinds of cool parts on. So that's where you can find us.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you so much. All right. The problem with getting two like-minded gearheads together on a digital call or in person, whatever, talking about cars is trying to, rein it in to an acceptable podcast length discussion. And we could have, and actually did after we quit recording, could have talked forever and about everything. And yes, there's just so much yet to converse about. I love getting people's opinions and thoughts on stuff, especially David, because, he's bought a Bronco, so he's had that experience. He's got lots of connections. He's got information I don't. I've got information he doesn't. Not that we're hiding it from one another. It's just the connections we've built along the way. And it's just a good time chatting with him. And again, it's one of the perks of this podcast for me as just a car guy, and getting to talk cars with people from throughout the industry, and the stories I get to share and tell and be a part of through this are just amazing. And, from getting to interview legendary Hall of Fame off-roader Sue Mead and getting to drive off-road with her, so many things have come from this podcast that I'm incredibly grateful for. And, just being able to sit down and talk cars with people is just, it's a dream come true. So all that to say, I truly thank you for listening to each week's episode. If you're new here, thank you so much. Go on and subscribe. Go check us out on gtgaragetalk.com, youtube.com/gtgaragetalk. We do a lot of stuff here. We drive cars. We do family reviews. We have a lot of fun here. And it is just so fun that I get to share it with you as a part of what I do. So thank you so much for listening. I didn't mean for this to turn into like a fan-loving gush session here at the end of the episode, but I truly am thankful for each and every one of you listening, and just the connections I get to make and the stories I get to share. And with that said, I will redirect you again to gtgaragetalk.com, where you'll find links to everything we do, including our Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that at GT Garage Talk. Until next time, bye.